to Just Minding My Business Radio, where we are moving at the speed of God, learning what we didn't know we didn't know. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
So grab a pen and paper and get ready for information that you can use.
Welcome to Just Minding My Business. We hope you had a productive day. Today we have coming to the mic Miss Felicia Baxley, who is originally from Milledgeville, Georgia, but now resides in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Felicia recently published her first book, congratulations, The Help Meet, Understanding Your Calling as a Wife. Felicia is dedicated to sharing the good, bad, and ugly parts of becoming an entrepreneur and encouraging others, especially women. Well, welcome, Felicia. I can't wait to hear how all of this transpired, how this book came into existence.
I thank you guys for having me. I'm honored. I just got started not even two and a half months ago. So I'm just excited to kind of share it all with you guys.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, welcome.
Yes. Awesome. So tell us what's the thought behind your new book?
So the first book is, as you stated, The Help Meet. It's a Christian lifestyle book geared towards women. And that specific book is actually God inspired, of course. And it's just to kind of give women a different perspective on their roles as a wife. I'm not a wife currently, but I was married previously. And I am in a relationship now, which I do believe God has shared with us that we will eventually be married. So throughout all of that journey, it just kind of inspired a lot of conversations with God, a lot of me trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing on my end so it works. And all of that ended up in that particular book. So that was my first work. I do actually have two more that are in the publication process right now, but I'm very proud of that first one.
Wow. And that's some good information because I'm on my second marriage and my first marriage, I had no clue what I was supposed to be doing. I looked at it like Cinderella. And I think most women, the very first one, you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking I got on golden slippers and we're gonna be married happily ever after. It was truly a fairy tale thought in my head.
Yeah.
When I did it.
Mm-hmm. And that's so true for so many people. I agree. Most people, young people, when they get married, they have a fairy tale version of what married life is like. And then when 2 days after the honeymoon, reality sets in and they don't know what to do with the reality that marriage is a compromise and hard work.
Absolutely.
And I've never been married. I can't even really say that. And I'm grateful because I really treasure my singlehood. But in watching others and learning about marriage, because I had to learn about marriage. I didn't know what marriage was supposed to be. It took me until my 30s, really 40s, before I began to get an understanding of what marriage is supposed to be. Not this mess that we see, but what marriage is supposed to be. And there's a big difference.
Yes. So can you give us a little bit of snippets from your book in terms of your experience and what you believe you took away from it?
So, at the very beginning of the book, I pretty much started, it was all, like I said, it was God inspired and it was based on a conversation. And it was a conversation that I had with God. It was actually during Hurricane Florence. I'm sure you guys remember Hurricane Florence, but being on the East Coast of North Carolina, I had actually evacuated back home to Georgia and I was there for about a week. During that time, me and my significant other now, we weren't really on speaking terms. We no longer had like that boyfriend, girlfriend title. We had this whole blowout. And I was so frustrated because I was like, God, you told me I'm supposed to be in this relationship. You told me we're going to get married. This isn't working. Like, what's happening? What's going wrong? Why are we here right now? And just in that heated, frustrated conversation with God, he just shared a lot of stuff with me. He shared me more so about not him and what he was going to fix on his end, but about me and the perspective that I needed to change. So he started sharing with me all of the, basically back to Adam and Eve, and it was a lot of internal stuff. So obviously we know that he created Eve from Adam's ribs. So it took me on this journey to just looking at that. And throughout the book, I share the different characteristics that we see at the point of creation of woman. And like you guys said, it's so much more to marriage, so much more to what God intended for marriage than what we see now. It's not just, about two people just living under the same roof, putting their finances together. It's a lot deeper. It's really a deeper connection than that, because it goes down to even the spiritual warfare side of your Christian lifestyle. So that's kind of where the book goes. And it's funny because a lot of women have this perception of, okay, well, it's him. Mm-hmm. This book isn't that perspective. It's, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? How can I check myself to make this a better? Because the reality is, in whatever relationship we have, friendships, with your colleagues, whatever the case may be, if you can figure out how you can make the situation better for yourself, then it's going to rub off on the other person. Absolutely.
And it's so funny. It takes a minute to get there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, many minutes.
Yeah, because I remember my first marriage, I thought, because I watched what my mother did. Mm-hmm. She cooked, she cleaned, she did all of that kind of stuff and made sure the house was in good order and things like that. But it is way more to it than that.
Oh, yeah.
Way more to it. But that's what I saw. The dysfunction that I saw, I really didn't pay, for some reason, I didn't really pay that a lot of attention, but I probably should have been focused on that. Yeah. I didn't realize it until after the fact, and like you said, you can't just look at the other person. You have to also look at the part you played.
Yep.
Because you did play a part.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And see, I grew up in a single parent home, so I didn't really have an expectation of what a marriage was supposed to be, other than what you saw on TV or what the stereotype was when you heard about marriage. So, like you said, it's so much more to just cooking and cleaning, or the old saying of being barefoot and pregnant. It's so much more than that. And I think when a lot of people get, just to give you an insight on something else I talk about at the very beginning, a lot of women think that getting married and having that ring on their finger is the ultimate commitment, which it's supposed to be, but it's not automatic. That's not an automatic process. And if both of you aren't on the same page, then hassling him into a ring, it isn't going to do anything if you're not willing to do your part and he's not willing to do his part.
There's something that you said that's so important. And many people of my generation got caught up into, I call it the 50s concept of marriage. We learned about marriage from television. Mm-hmm. So you have the whole Donna Reed, father knows best, my three sons kind of idea of family and marriage. And my three sons, it was just the father and the grandfather. But still, it was idealistic.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. It's my generation where divorce started and just became commonplace. And I think it's because so many were raised, again, we had all the fairy tales, Cinderella, Snow White, the prince and the princess, and people getting kissed and waking up to a fortune in a beautiful house. We had all of that nonsense driven into us from childhood, literally from infancy. So that when we started seeing the realities of marriage, it was too much for us.
Yeah.
Because, we didn't get kissed every time our husbands left home.
Yeah.
Kissed every time our husbands came home,
Yeah.
It's just interesting that it's my generation where the whole faith in marriage fell apart. And now, fortunately, I'm beginning to see people trying to bring it back together, people like yourselves, who are taking some time to think about this. Let's think about this in a really intellectual, intelligent way. Let's analyze, what does it mean to be married?
Yep.
And I think that's powerful. Yeah. I'd like to read your book. I'm not married. I'm not getting married.
Well,
I would love to read it. It sounds like really good information to pass on.
Well, and I mean, obviously I'm pretty biased because I wrote it, but I have had other women like yourself who aren't married. They aren't looking to get married, but you can still look. I'm sure there's something that you can still take from it, because again, it's more so about you. It's about your purpose as a woman. Yeah. And of course it's in relation to how it, would relate to a man. But again, it goes back to the foundation of yourself. If you can get this stuff right for yourself, whatever else you do would be better, because you have that peace, you have that understanding, you have that perspective in your own mind for yourself, rather than depending on the expectations of somebody else to determine what it is that you're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely.
That's so important to know. Basically, you're saying to know yourself, so that when you come across somebody that you think you want to be with, or who thinks they want to be with you, you're presenting your authentic self.
Yes.
You're not creating something that they will like, you start redoing yourself, remaking yourself so that this other person will like you. Instead, you're in a position where you're strong and stable enough in yourself to say, this is who I am. This is who I am. So what you see is what you get.
That's
this
right.
Is what you want.
Yes.
And it's so funny you say that, because in my second marriage, that's how it was. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And unfortunately, I had a really bad attitude. So my husband worked hard for me. I mean, real hard. Because I was at that place where the first marriage didn't work. I think that was my first love. It took me about a year to really get through that. And it was a lot of crying, a lot of standing in the mirror. I am beautiful, I am this, because I felt like I did something wrong. Mm-hmm. Now, do you touch on that piece in your book? Because a lot of times, we all play a part, but sometimes the other person played the bigger part.
Mm-hmm. I do not touch on anything like that in the book, only because this book is pretty much for your own perspective. Because yes, we can be hurt. Yes, we can be in those relationships with those people that they did it wrong. We did all that we could. We put forth the best effort that we could, but they got it wrong, and it happens. So I did not in this specific book talk about the hurts and getting over that. I specifically more so focused on just kind of like we discussed, getting the perspective for yourself of what to expect if you choose to go into another relationship or anything like that, because it's one, learning what your role is and the part that you're able to play, because I don't think a lot of women really understand the depth of the role that they play for their husbands. So it's that piece, knowing for yourself. And then it's also that word that we as women don't really like to talk about, understanding how to submit and submit properly. Because a lot of women tend to think that submit just means you do whatever he says. But it, again, so much more to it than that. It's not that simple. It's not that clear cut. So
and it's a lovely thing when you really see it. When you see that both partners are doing what they're supposed to do. Like you said, it's, God already made the arrangement. What is the man supposed to do? What is the wife supposed to do? Submission is a part of it, but it is submission, not being abused.
Right.
And
absolutely.
Sometimes that's what the male part gets twisted.
Yep.
They think that it means domination, domineering, abuse, be it physical or verbal or mental or emotional. That's not what it means. And
absolutely,
to be able to first of all, to find a man, be honest, to find a man who's worthy of your submission.
Absolutely.
Very, very difficult.
Yes.
Yes.
Because a man has to be worthy of that. You mentioned Adam and Eve. I always think about Abraham and Sarah. And Sarah said in her heart, she called her husband Lord.
Yep.
In other words, ownership, giving him ownership. But that's one of the most beautiful love stories in the Bible.
Yes.
And it was submission. Who else would really, truly? Abraham was told to go to a foreign country. He told his wife, Sarah, we're going camping for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And she had a beautiful home. Most people don't realize that. They had a beautiful home. He was wealthy. They actually had indoor plumbing. Can you imagine going from that to living in a tent for the rest of your life?
Yeah, and not knowing where you're going, because he didn't know. He just said,
he didn't know.
I'm following God's. And that's, and you're right. That's probably one of the best examples, that specific portion of their story, one of the best examples of submission that you can find. It's basically trusting that he's not going to lead you in the wrong direction, even though it can be uncomfortable, because we don't want to be uncomfortable. We don't want to be wrong. We don't want to have to give up ourselves for stuff.
That's exactly it. Yeah, there's a part of us. We're real people. You know, when you get married, you're a real person. And trying to say, yes, dear.
Yeah.
Can be really. I can't even imagine how hard that is.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I don't have to go through that.
I'm sure
there are people in my life that I have to give that respect to.
Yeah.
But I see it with husbands and wives, and I really admire some of them because they have that role and they do it. And sometimes I know it's like I have a friend, I can see her saying, no. I have to say yes. Okay. Yes. And it's funny to watch it, but I've always seen the results of it have always been beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The results are beautiful. So
where can people get the book?
It is available on Amazon. It's also available on barnesandnoble.com, iBooks, so like the Apple iBook store. It's available on Kindle. I think it should be available at walmart.com now. Pretty much most retailers on their online stores, you should be able to get it. When in doubt, you can always go to Amazon. It'll be there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I know you said you're working on another book. Beautiful books, correct?
Yes, I have 2 that are in the process of being published now. And then by the end of the year, there'll be 2 more.
Oh, wow. You just a busy bee.
I am. Once I got started, I was like, okay, I'm in it. I'm out there now.
Right. So give us a little sneak preview of the books that you have coming.
So the first book that should be out is called Waiting or Warfare. That one's also another Christian lifestyle book. And that one is specifically kind of like those 2 spiritual seasons. We have the spiritual season of waiting. And then we have the spiritual season of warfare. So it's kind of helping people to understand the difference and knowing, what those seasons look like and what your role in those seasons are supposed to be. Because people get frustrated and they kind of don't understand why they're in a place that they're in. And it could be obviously that they're in a place to wait, which I have had so much experiences with. I do not like the term waiting at all. I hate waiting. I'm too impatient, but I've been there quite often. So that's that book. And then the third book is actually entitled Ready, Set, Bossed Up. And that one's actually a kind of like a self-help book. And it's 7 tips for the aspiring entrepreneur. So that one is one that kind of goes over 7 areas for the person that's looking to kind of get started with building a business or building a brand, and just the things that they want to take into consideration when they're ready to make that leap.
Okay.
Very good.
Excellent reads.
No, I hope so.
Excellent reads, for sure. So how can people get in contact with you if they want you to speak at any of their events or things like that? surrounding topics around your book?
Sure. So they can follow my author page on Facebook. It's just author Felicia Baxley. And then they can also find me on Instagram. My Instagram is The Creatives Grind. So TheCreatives, and then the word grind. And then they can also email me at FeliciaB.theauthor@gmail.com.
Okay. And you have a podcast too. So
I do.
I definitely want to hear about that.
So my podcast is it's called Boss in the Making. That's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Google Play. I think there might be some other ones, but I can't think of them right now. But those mainstream ones, it's available there. And Boss in the Making, I started around the same time that I published that first book. And it was solely to kind of share my journey to becoming a creative entrepreneur, sharing my journey to kind of basically become my own boss. So I sit and I talk with other authors, other entrepreneurs, and I just sit and I kind of share. I share the lessons that I learned. I share the experiences that I have. So I've sat and I've talked about how the corona pandemic has affected me and what I'm doing through it. I've talked about my previous book engagements. So my first book signing and my vendor event, I talked about that. And I don't just talk about all of the good stuff that, people like to hear. I don't just talk about my results. I talk about the mistakes I've made, the lessons that I've learned, the things that I know that I can do different. So I just kind of share all of that with other people. I just want to make sure that I can get as much information out there and encourage somebody, because I waited. I think I've had all of this in the back of my mind for probably 3 or 4 years. That first book has just been sitting completed on my desktop for the last 2 years. So if I can help somebody to know that I understand the struggles of getting started and the struggles of keeping, everything going, I want to just kind of share it to encourage them and let them know from the perspective of somebody who's going on that journey with them.
Yes, and I think we're all on that journey.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, Dr. Frazier said it very well. He said, if you get through one obstacle, and then God says, that a girl, or that a boy, and then you get another one.
Yeah.
And, when he said that, it was like, oh my God, that is exactly how it works. And I never really defined it. We just kind of go through it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We just get through it the best we can.
But to define it that way just made it crystal clear to me, and that's the way that it is.
Yep.
And we all have struggles in business, and at each level, there's a different struggle.
Yes.
Yeah.
And each struggle is an opportunity for learning. If we really turn around after we've gotten through that one hump and we're in the middle of another hump and we think about that last hump, sometimes the answer that we need to get through this one, we've already learned. And it's just a matter of taking it and applying it.
Yes.
And I really love that. I'm learning that myself. It's a continuous learning cycle. Life, that's what life is.
Yeah.
It's a continuous learning adventure. I prefer to see it as an adventure.
Yeah.
Now I do. If you had said that, someone had said to me 20 years ago that it was an adventure, I would have thought they were crazy. But now I can see it as such because, age does bring a little bit of wisdom, a little bit.
Yeah, so I can't wait to hear your podcast, because that's kind of what this podcast is about. We interview different business owners, authors, coaches, artists, both spoken word. It's all about sharing that gift that God gave you and being a light for somebody else.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Because
and we need a lot of lights in this world right now. We need
absolutely.
all the light we can get.
There's plenty of room.
There's plenty of room for it. There's plenty of room for everybody's gift, and everybody's gifts are needed.
Yes.
And really needed. And that may be the bright spot of this whole COVID coronavirus,
Yeah.
people are going to start pulling out their gifts. That's what I'm hoping happens.
That's right.
It's calling on us to do something. Can't run around in the world and do it. So how can we reach people? How can we really help one another?
Yes.
And your podcast sounds lovely because people need that. It's our podcast here. That's what we do. I also have a podcast, and the whole purpose of it is to help somebody.
That's
Maybe
right.
they hear something that they can apply, something they can use, or just make that moment, those few moments that they spend listening, give them some sense of calm and comfort and hope and assurance that, the world really isn't falling apart. Maybe it's falling together. Not such a bad thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. So again, how can people get in touch with you, and where can people get your book?
So my book, The Help Meet, Understanding Your Calling as a Wife, is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple Bookstore. My upcoming books are Waiting a Warfare and Ready, Set, Bossed Up. They can follow my social media pages to get the announcements on when those books are going to be released and where they'll be available. Facebook author page is author Felicia Baxley. Instagram is @thecreativesgrind. And then for direct inquiries, for those who don't have social media, they can email me at feliciaB.theauthor@gmail.com.
Awesome. This has been a delightful collaboration.
Yes, it has.
And
Thank you so much.
I can't wait to see what else you got cooking.
Keep us in the loop, please. We will be following you.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. And we're definitely going to be checking out your podcast, because what you talk about is definitely right up my alley, because it's important that we share the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes, ma'am.
Because people need to see that, when Beyonce goes out and does her thing, or we don't know what happened prior.
Yep, that's right.
It could have been all kinds of monkey wrenches.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. All kinds of trauma. All kinds of trauma.
And that's what people need to know is that, to get to that smiley place, there's some sweat and tears going on in the background.
It is, yes.
For sure. But we thank you so much, Felicia. You are a beautiful person, a beautiful soul, and we definitely enjoy sharing you with our audience.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure speaking with you guys. I had a great time.
Thank you so much. We did too.
We will definitely do this again.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
The very best to you.
Word on the street says there's something new at Just Minding My Business Media. You've heard our podcast, Just Minding My Business Radio, that brings news and views you can use. That airs every Thursday at 6 p.m. on iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and Spreaker. Well, now you can watch Just Minding My Business. That's right, Just Minding My Business Media now has a TV presence on Raven International TV Network, broadcast on Roku, Fire, and Apple TV. Your business, through Just Minding My Business Media, has exposure on internet radio, major social media platforms, and now TV, through Just Minding My Business dynamic digital marketing platform. Don't listen to the word on the street. Hear it for yourself. Visit jmb.asistercircle.org to learn how you can take your business, your vision, to the next level. Thank you to the amazing women of A Sister Circle Empowerment Network, ASCEN LLC, and our media partners. Let Just Minding My Business Media promote your business. For information, visit us at jmb.asistercircle.org. That's jmb.asistascircle.org. Voiceovers by RCH VoiceWorks, for when you want to be heard. Call 443-620-4115.
Thank you for tuning in to Just Minding My Business Radio. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
We hope you enjoyed the show and appreciate you stopping by. Many blessings to you and yours.